Hi, I'm Linda Mowell, and welcome to Art This Week. On this week's episode, we visit the Modern Art Museum of Fort Worth, and our interviewer, Rachel Livedalen, speaks with artist Katherine Bradford about her exhibition, Focus, Katherine Bradford. Now for Art This Week. Hi, I'm Rachel Livedalen, here with Katherine Bradford at the Modern. Thank you so much for speaking with us today.
I'm so glad to be here.
So can you tell us a little bit about the exhibition here at the Modern?
These are all recent paintings done in the last year, and they were selected by Allison Hurst, the curator. A lot of them have water in them, with people in the water. They're not all swimmers. They're doing mysterious things in the water.
What I love most about your paintings is the materiality of the paint on the surface and just the light quality and luminosity that you're able to achieve. Can you give us more insight into your process?
Well, see, you've hit on two things that are really important to me, because sometimes I stop a painting when I feel I've gotten a light in it that I feel is interesting. Like this one has what you're using the word luminosity. It has a sense that there's some light under that water coming through.
So when you're applying paint to the surface, what makes you react to a certain quality of light? What are you looking for?
Transparency is something I love, and maybe one reason why I paint a lot of water. There's a painting right there which has a figure over the water looking through a diving mask into the water, and then if your imagination holds, there's a figure going through the water. Mm-hmm. One figure over the water and one figure under the water. Mm-hmm. As a painter, that idea really interested me, because we're putting one layer of paint over another. I'm layering the paint a lot. Mm-hmm. You said materiality. Mm-hmm. I agree. I love paint really more than I love water.
And so I imagine when you're layering the paint over other layers of paint, you're also layering the color and playing around with the relationship that happens between those colors. How do you select the color for these compositions?
With my eye. I use colors that I love. The first layer of this painting is pink, and it's magenta. It's actually fluorescent magenta with some white in it. And so I put that down first, because I knew when I put the turquoise, it's actually phthalo turquoise, a rare color that I found and fell in love with. So I knew that there would be an interesting peeking through of the pink, and that's what guided me to make the figures. Where the pink was most peeking through, I painted in a figure. I know it sounds a little unusual. I don't think they teach that in art schools. I think they make you be sure you know how to draw a figure and you know a background and all that. But a lot of the figure-ground relationship in my work happens accidentally or improvisationally.
Now these paintings seem much larger than some of your earlier work. How does scale affect your process as well as the subject matter?
The reason these are larger is because I grew a little more confident. When you're showing in a museum with the scale, this museum has a very big scale. You walk in the lobby and you're in a high ceiling room with large proportions, and you as a human being feel small. And I didn't want to put small intimate work in a place like this. I wanted to rise to the occasion and have larger paintings. And a lot of my paintings have a lot of ground, a lot of color fields of color, like a Rothko. And then I would put small figures in it. And sometimes the environment would dwarf the figures. But in the paintings in this room, the figures are life-size, larger. So maybe that's a cliche that as an artist goes along in their practice, they start doing bigger, bolder things. Not always, but it seems to be the case.
Now you mentioned fields of color, and I read that you first started as an abstract painter. So when did you first experiment with adding the figure in your work?
It was very gradual. I can't give you a date or a time, but the fields of color would suggest things. First of all, they suggest water. Even if I didn't paint them blue, I felt as though I could see something in them. Does that sound too woo-woo?
No.
Too magical? And so it was a small step to add boats or swimmers to these fields. Mm-hmm. And then I did it more purposefully.
Thinking about the figures in the work, how do you navigate gender when depicting figures? Are you thinking about a particular narrative when you're working, or personalities to the figures that you're representing?
Well, my aim as an artist is to make a kind of universal statement. Ideally epic. I want to do epic paintings. I know that's a popular word now, but by that I mean something with a big theme that will touch a lot of issues. So I'm not making portraits of specific people, which actually isn't always true if you look at this show. But I don't want to make paintings of men or paintings of women. I'd like to make paintings of human beings. And I know these figures here look like men. That just had to be. But a lot of times it's according to the bathing suit. If the bathing suit has a top, it's a woman, and if it doesn't, it's a man. And I don't put a lot of facial features in. And the hair, I mean, hair these days for men and women is pretty similar. I like that term non-binary. You want to hit a space between female and male. That would be my ideal. I'm not saying I'm actually achieving it, but that's something that's on my mind.
There seems to be a fragility or a vulnerability to the figures that populate your paintings. How do you characterize these scenes?
I characterize them as fragile and vulnerable. No, I really love the emotional state of vulnerability. I think that's very exciting to witness. And someone with a bathing suit on, to me, feels exposed emotionally, visually, and I've done that over and over because they're not protected. You know, this is just the opposite of those big portraits that you might see in a castle or the White House. Those people are clothed. You know they're important and powerful. My people are left with their body and their bathing suit. And to me, you're being shown a side of them that's maybe more private.
There's a barrier that's no longer there.
Well, yeah, I like the way you put that. Because don't you think those classical portraits of people, they want a barrier? Mm-hmm. I mean, they were made to give the person a certain worth. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, they wouldn't have a portrait painted.
Yeah. Now, there are reoccurring motifs or scenes in your works, like the bathers, as well as boats, night scenes, even Superman. What draws you to these topics?
Well, you know, I'm not sitting down and figuring it all out. It happens as I'm painting. And the reason I put Superman in was I was doing figures diving through the air, which is kind of fun to do for a painter, because you can, if you're doing someone diving through the air, you can put them anywhere in that rectangle. They can be up here, they can be down there, they can be coming in from the side. So it's something to play with. But I got bothered by mixing flesh colors, because I'd think, oh no, this is too white, or this is too dark, or this looks too purple, or oh, I can't do a green person. But then I had a breakthrough with Superman. Red underpants, red boots, a yellow sash, a insignia right on his chest. I mean, as far as color goes, it was very exciting, because the person who designed Superman was a good graphics person. That's a great outfit. You're piling one wonderful color on top of another, accent colors. And so I didn't have to worry about the flesh color. And I could have him flying through the air. And besides, Superman's very mystical. And he's gonna save us. So we've given him a lot of power. And as a contemporary artist, I wanted to explore that realm. I mean, think of how many paintings there are of religious figures. And I don't feel in 2017 I can do a religious painting in the same way that it used to be done. But perhaps I can hint at an idea of what that might have become. Actually, this sounds sacrilegious, doesn't it? That I'm putting Superman there. But I think we're still yearning for a leader, someone who's going to solve the problems and lift us up with his red cape and take us away from the trouble.
Well, thinking about Superman as kind of coming from pop culture, and you mentioned religious paintings, working from art history, I'm curious about the art historical references in your work, especially the idea of the bathers and some of the more nautical scenes. How would you define your relationship with art history in these paintings?
You know, I think every painter is in a conversation with what came before. Homage, admiration, wanting to plunder the ideas, but also I want to change the ideas. And a lot of, for instance, the French painters love to do oceanside paintings, and then I'd have female nude nymphs frolicking on the seaside, the bathers, as a stand-in for the natural Mother Nature, for the female liberated, I don't know. It seemed awful. It seemed like an awful idea that the male painters was taking the nude woman as a muse in that way. So as a female painter, I want to get in the water with the swimmers. So I'm painting people that are me and my friends getting immersed in the water. And I don't really think of them as bathers. That seems such an ancient term. I mean, we're not going in the water to bathe. And I wanted to distance myself from leisure time bathing. You know, what I really wanted was for the whole enterprise to be a metaphor, plunging in, navigating, being immersed, that kind of large idea of being in an element, the element of water. Mm-hmm. I have a little fire, too, in this show. Did you see that painting? There's a castle with a little fire coming out of it.
Fire and water.
Well, the elements, I mean, they're pretty potent things to deal with. basic things.
So you mentioned plunging in, and I read that you moved to New York in the 80s as a single mother of two, navigating the art world. And I think that is incredible. What was that like? How did you first get started?
It was tough. It was tough. My kids were school age. They were boy-girl twins. And I remember thinking, wow, no one asked me to come to New York. I wasn't invited. I didn't have a job. I was an artist, and you know there were plenty of artists there already. So I had to slowly make my way. It was pretty slow. My first friends were all, I was moving from Maine, and all the people I knew were from Maine, thank goodness. But I sort of thought of it in my mind as the old country. We were all coming to New York from the old country and looking to each other for companionship. But you know something that I've never revealed before and is very important? There were two grandmothers in that area that were a great help to me. Now that I'm a grandmother, I think I should acknowledge what a great gift that was. So I wasn't moving to this big, strange city. I was moving to a part of the country where there was more family, as well as an art world.
Well, thinking of building your own community with family or friends, I know you have a lot of artist friends that you work with, exchange ideas with, including fellow Canada gallery artist Katherine Bradford, who is here in this space. And we also...
She had the focus show right before me. Yes.
Did she? Yes. And we also interviewed her for Art This Week. So how have your artist friends and art communities influenced your career?
Well, a lot of them give me permission to be courageous, to try out new things, to persevere, to have a little more fun. You know, Katherine Bradford is a great example of an artist who had a terrific breakthrough when she decided she was going to show a side of herself that is a little bit ridiculous. I think that's very brave. She does paintings of toilet paper next to cigarettes for no reason at all. She really paints from her gut more than anyone I know, and I admire that so much. Plus, she has a terrific eye for color, and she seems to be able to draw with a spray paint and not make many mistakes, not make any mistakes as far as I can see. So I look at what my friends do, and if they seem to have a good idea or a good approach, I take it. Plunder. And one of my favorite things to do when I'm a little exhausted in the studio and I need a break, not so much eating, not so much listening to music, flicking through Instagram and seeing, oh, what's going on out there, and seeing what other people are thinking about, and when they post their work. Oh, Todd Bienvenu, he's making swimmers in a way that's slightly different than me. Or Chris Martin, he's using glitter and getting a lot of great light effects. Not painting light the way I am, to have different layers of paint shining through, but actually having the light bounce off the glitter. And that's his way of being luminous. And I know we both admire painters who are luminous, so I know that was somewhere in the back of his mind.
So you mentioned that Katherine Bradford paints from her gut. Do you think you paint from your gut too?
Not enough. No, I do. But then there's a certain time, like right now, where you sit down and you think about what you have done. But in the act of painting a painting, I think you have to be right on your toes and totally in the moment. And very wary of books on tape and stuff or watching television. You know, some artists watch television while they paint.
I couldn't do that.
But I'm talking to someone who works with TV and film and so on. But that's for after the act of making something. So if you can react instinctively, like a truck's coming towards you, you jump out of the way. That's an instinct. And I aim to paint like that.
I think that's a great place to end. You aim to paint like a truck is driving
About to mow
towards
me
you.
down. But I jump out of the way because that's a good, almost animal instinct. Yes, it's very animal, isn't it? If you've ever seen one run across the road.
Well, thank you so much for
Thank you,
speaking with
Rachel.
us today. The show is absolutely gorgeous.
Thanks so much.
We want to thank Katherine for speaking with us. For more information on the exhibition, go to themodern.org. That's it for Art This Week. Thanks for watching.
I still got your Polaroid.